Thulasizwe Simelane is in our Nasrec studio, and I think you've got TK Pooe with you, haven't you? Hello, Thulas.
Hi, Sally. It's a rap from Nasrec, or is it? It's
Sort
not
of.
really a rap. It's a pause. It's a timeout. We are all taking a bit of a timeout until the 5th of January.
We absolutely are, aren't we? I mean, you know, as Ibrahim was saying, it has been marked by delays and disorganisation indeed.
Yeah, and Sally, it didn't have to be this way. I mean, the ANC had 5 days to conclude the business of conference, including reshaping the ANC itself, electing new leadership, but also thinking through some of the policies, which, by the way, is a process that had started in July already, in fact, ahead of July, because there was the policy conference in July, which was preceded by widespread consultation at branch level, and the documents were distributed for people to engage with and make inputs into those policies. So to have 5 days and still not be able to conclude the business of conference, objectively speaking, you don't need to be opposed to the ANC or anything to know that that is not a picture of efficiency. And in fact, the ANC itself has not done this before, where it had 5 days of a conference and still did not come out with a declaration with firm commitments of what is to happen going forward. We only have the precedent of Gauteng, which I now call it the Gauteng model. So this is the Gauteng model that the ANC nationally is taking up. But TK Pooe is in studio with me to take the conversation forward. TK, I don't know what your big takeout is and what it can be under these circumstances of the speech by the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. Your big takeouts.
Well, on the speech, I think it's more of the same. You could have basically substituted all the speeches he's made as ANC president to be that. Maybe it's just because he's tired, I could give him that. But there's nothing that you can take home and say, okay, well, this is different, so that's one. Secondly, I think it's the issue you touch on, which has bigger ramifications. Just, you say 5 days, I say 5 years to prepare for you. Every 5 years you do the same thing. And we started with this, I think, on Friday, when I said, look, as an institution, the ANC has not modernized. And I think the decrepit nature of how they're falling apart is actually seen in the amount of lost days. And then inability, remember, by virtue, you are the governing party. What you should have come out with first, before you even go to elections, is to say, these are our policy positions, this is what we have done, the members have discussed. But we don't even know what the discussions are. So we're going to be left in the loop. And then obviously the issue of, the third issue that one really does take away is, while the bubble that is this conference, for many of the people here, and the president also kind of conveyed it, they're joyous, they're happy. I still see a disjunction between what they understand where South Africa is and what they're going to be representing us going forward. In fact, we don't know what they're going to present us because we haven't really seen their recommendations.
Well, let me challenge you a little bit on that so that, I'm here for that. What I did pick up is a hint, as opposed to, when we rose from this conference in 2017, we had firm commitments. I remember the words, we are going to expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. That's firm, that's decisive. We are going to establish a state bank. We are going to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we have here is, for me, it sounded more like platitudes that say, at the top of what he mentioned at the start, was accelerate the pace of reforms in the economy. Well, what do you mean by that? I don't know, over and above what has happened already up to this point.
Well, that's what I'm going to say. It's more of the same. What he's just spoken about, I could have said that at the 52nd, the 53rd, and the 54th. As I said, South Africans we've moved on from speeches. You judge entities, especially political ones, in the 21st century, not by the speech of their leaders. If it's a great speech, you give them you give them a glass, you raise a glass and say, well done. But you measure them by what they have done. It's very different. If it was an opposition party, then maybe you might get into the minutiae of the speech. But this is not an opposition party. This is a governing party. You come here to show what you have done. And that's why I'm saying this is a cut and paste speech for the last 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, but TK, I've got to push back again. There was talk about needing to professionalize the civil service that came through. I think I heard him talk about the issue of crime in our country. that there's now a firm commitment. Doesn't that amount to them finally being on the same page as all of us, that crime is an emergency in this country? I'm just sampling a number of policies. I'm trying here, TK, work with me.
No, I hear. Okay, let me be more specific so people, and again, this is not an attack on the ANC, this is just the reality. We cannot get away from facts. If you speak of, let's say, land, where have you been on land? Because this has been now we can even say 3-decade-long thing. It's been a problem, right? If you speak of the bank, this has long been discussed. So when I'm saying these points, it's not to say, look, maybe something new. I always say this. I always remain optimistic about the future of the Republic, not because of a political party, but mainly because of the citizens that we have. So I always make that disjuncture that when I'm positive about the Republic, I never want it to be in the hands of a political party, but I'm simply viewing this political party as a vehicle. And we need to, as I said, this is not a football team.
Yeah.
Chiefs can disappoint me. I still love them on Monday. But we cannot have the same attitude we have towards political parties. So and I think maybe what I'm saying can also be said about the opposition parties, to say, listen, you guys are speaking a lot. How is it that you're not able to take this party, which is ill-performing, out? So the same speech I'm giving and the same analysis I'm giving, you can put for all the opposition parties. I'm simply saying society has moved on. We want results. We don't want speeches.
Yeah. One of the other policies that I heard being hinted at, and it remains a hint until the 5th of January and whatever comes through after that, is that whole idea of the just energy transition. What the elements thereof are, it will be important, won't it, TK? And I'll tell you why I think I'm teasing this one out in particular. There seemed to be a friction between a firm commitment to move away from coal to lower carbon fuel energy sources. Between that and actually those who were saying, coming into this conference, that no, actually, Europe, the argument goes, Europe is, switching back to coal. They've been, using coal quite a fair amount in the last few months. The veracity of that, the degree to which it holds as an objective truth is a separate matter. That's one of the issues that is being mentioned, but we still don't have the detail of what does it look like, the just energy transition after this conference. But let's park policy for a moment and talk tone of the president of the ANC. He faced a stiff challenge. In the end, it wasn't close. It wasn't even close. In fact, 2017 between him and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was closer in terms of it being a contest than this contest with Zweli Mkhize. But in the tone, what did you pick up? Is there something different there that says the buffalo has sharpened his horns and will gore anyone who dares, I don't know, step out of line, in the sense of step out of line of the party altogether, rather than merely challenging him?
Well, in terms of political communication, he seemed more confident as opposed to 2017. I think 2017, he knew early that, look, the balance of forces were probably split down the middle, and it wasn't really, it was celebration as president. But here he seems more, almost confident and almost, dare I say, eager to actually get to work, which I think will be quite interesting. So you're right in saying there is a difference in tone and in appearance. Here he seems more eager for work, more eager to actually almost, dare I say, get into the kraal and start working. So that is a major difference. And look, as I said earlier, maybe the one thing I could have said is the composition of the 7 and the likely composition of the NEC is one where maybe he'll be let loose.
Yeah.
And that maybe could be something.
There's that unfinished business, that loose end, that says, what does the National Executive Committee, the rest of it, what does it look like? But we're already getting a glimpse, TK, and we are on standby for a briefing by the new Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula. He's going to be briefing media. That's where many of these questions will be ventilated. But as you say, we still have loose ends in terms of what the rest of the NEC looks like. The 83, if I do my maths correctly, yes, 83, that still need to be elected. But we're already getting a glimpse of just how loud and buoyant it is likely to be, and razzmatazz it is all likely to be. Fikile Mbalula, on day one of being Secretary General, asserting himself.
Well, yes, I think he is quite, but usually he normally starts all his positions like this. I think he likes setting a high tone, but there's a saying I learned quite a long time ago that the hope is not that he'll have pizza paraffin. and that it will be more just, what do you say, a more sustainable level of energy that he's going to be using. But he always starts quite well, and he always sets the tone quite well. And look, he kind of makes the position seem quite friendly more than anything else. So it'll be interesting to see how he owns it and who he puts into his office as well. Because with the other two DSGs, it's going to become interesting how they divvy up the responsibilities among themselves, who does what. And again, does it really lead to this modernization of this almost, maybe one say, ancient organization?
But here's my thinking, though, TK, around Fikile Mbalula, a combination of Fikile Mbalula and Nomvula Mokonyane. These two, if you strip away everything else, every criticism we can level at them, objectively, they are strong campaigners. And I don't know how you feel about it. I just think that there's a conversation to be had there about going into 2024, the energy they bring to campaigns. There's a reason why at any given point, both of them have occupied head of organizing and head of elections in the ANC. It's simply because when it comes to the energy to run campaigns, they've got energy for that. But is that enough? Because right now it feels to me as if the ANC needs the Secretary General, over and above all of these things, to again be the CEO of the ANC.
Well, Thulasizwe, I think with your experience around the region, you know more than most that the ANC has never lacked for campaigning. I always say that's never been an issue. You know, most importantly, what the secretary position really entails is how are you going to open up new branches? How are you going to account for those new branches? How are you going to orientate members into what they're now saying is a reorganized or renewed ANC? And most important, because it's one thing for people to come up to your campaigns. It's another thing for people to go to the ballot box. And that's why I said the subtlety of being a Secretary General is not so much in the campaigning. I give it to those two individuals you have mentioned. They are quite well at that. But there is a subtlety needed to saying, how do you revive structures? For you to revive structures, you need to go to communities that have been let down by the ANC. How do you have that conversation? Not on the records, not with the media, but with people that will tell you that your organization has done X and Y over time. Why should I invest? And there's also the issue of saying, how do you go to new communities? Because that's something which is also becoming a recurring theme within the ANC, that it looks a certain way. How do you go to communities in Constantia? How do you go to communities maybe in El Dorado Park?
Yeah. And
have those conversations of saying, let's start a branch based on what?
All right, TK, let's hold it there for a moment.